Hi guys, Rhonda here with RK3 Designs. And today we are going to start at the very beginning. I have a lot of people that come to my class and they'll always ask me, well, how do you prep a sample board? We use MDF boards, and most of my sample boards are on just a very thin half-inch piece of MDF. And what we do is we take the board and we router the edges, 1/4 inch round over bit, so that the epoxy, when we lay it down, it'll roll over those edges. Epoxy really doesn't like 90 degrees, and you'll have some problems with your edges if you don't round those corners over. And we go a step farther, and we also round over the bottom edge. And the reason we do this is because when you put your epoxy down and it rolls over nice and pretty, if you have a 90-degree edge here, it's gonna puddle up on this edge, and you're gonna actually form kind of a hard edge almost. So when you have to sand all those drips off, or you run your finger through constantly and take those drips off, you still kind of have a form, kind of an edge right there. So what rounding it over does is it brings that drip a little farther back on your board so that it's not right on the edge. It kind of brings it farther back, so then when you go to sand it, you have a nice clean edge. And MDF is a very porous surface, so it really does suck up your product a lot. So if you don't really sand it well, kind of closing up those pores, you will really use a lot of product. You'll have gaps. A lot of times if you try to do a pour, you'll notice there'll be gaps on it. It's just not wanting to really flow very nicely. So I make sure that I really sand it well before we put our paint on there. So I'm using today a little sanding, I don't know what this was called, but I like it. And I'll put a link on in the show notes for this thing. And I'm just using a 220 sandpaper. So I just like to scuff it up, and you don't have to be great at this. I just like to kind of scuff up the surface, make it a little smooth. I do pay very close attention to my edges because it really will close up these edges when you sand them. And just kind of hit them a little bit, and I just kind of take my hand and roll it over as I'm sanding. All right, so that was quick. Now, another thing that I believe is just ingenious, and whoever invented these are right up there with sliced bread. These are called painter's pyramids. I love them. I use them on everything. They really get your project up off the table, let your epoxy roll down. You can get these, I get these at Home Depot, and I believe you can also order them on Amazon. So I use those a lot. All right, so we're gonna get started. I prime and paint my board with Behr paint and primer in one. I use probably 4 basic colors with just about every finish I do, unless it's a very, very custom color. I'll use Behr Suede gray, their natural gray, their Broadway, which is a black, and an Ethiopia, which is what I'm gonna use today. And it's kind of a neutral color. And really, that's basically the 4 colors that I kind of stick with. Even if I'm doing a white marble, I very seldom paint my board with a vivid white. I kind of use that natural gray, which is actually a very light color. So it works really good. So what I'll do, make sure that it's in at least an eggshell or above, not a flat. I use, this one is actually eggshell, and I really like that. It just lets the epoxy flow a little bit better than, say, a flat. Most of the time, if I'm doing a big board, I will use a roller, but for simplicity today, I'm just gonna use a paintbrush. So when I say you really wanna address those edges, MDF is gonna suck up your paint a lot. So I really want to get that paint on there, because you'll notice by the time you finish your board, it's going to be dry on the other side. This is exactly the same way we prep our countertops, because we make our countertops out of MDF, And we do the same thing. We use a round over bit, we round our corners, we address our edges the same exact way as we do our sample boards. Now, we will use in the kitchen area, we will prep the back side of our boards, our MDF boards that we're making for the countertops, with a product called Red Guard. Anywhere that those countertops are going to be exposed to any sort of moisture. Okay, so basically that is prepping that I do for my sample boards. Now I will let this dry, and it usually doesn't take long to dry at all. Then I'll come back and I'll very slightly scuff it up, and I'll put a second coat. Once I do my second coat of the Behr paint and primer, I do let it sit overnight. We want all of that moisture out of that paint 100% before I take the next step, which is to do a finish where I'm applying the epoxy on top. Guys, I really appreciate you watching our videos. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and then hit the little bell so that you get notifications when we do our weekly updates. All right, have a great day, and I appreciate it.